Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Had Ultimate Gacha System Part 11 Chapter 66. In the dungeon, Issei left his soul subspace as he was done training the sun breathing. With sword in hand, Issei decided to increase the rate he was descending the dungeon. Seeing monsters flocking him, Issei dashed forward and did a vertical slash along with his heavenly flames of transmogrification to create the visual effect of sun breathing. Dance. Looking around his surrounding, Issei saw various monsters surrounding him. This was the perfect chance to use one of the sun-breathing forms. Issei spun his body horizontally 360 degrees and delivered a slash. This was clear blue sky. All the monster that was touched by the heavenly flames of transmogrification was turned to dust instantly. Since there were countless monsters in front of him, Issei decided to unleash a continuous fast and powerful sword attack that seemingly took the form of a Japanese dragon made of solar flames. This technique is capable of decapitating multiple targets at once. This was sun-breathing. Dragon Sun Halo Head Dance. Issei rushed forward with a flaming sword and performed a 5-move combo. A low-ended strike from the left, a low-ended strike from the right that lifts the user off the ground briefly, a spinning wave attack, a powerful forwards-upwards slash, and an overhead downwards slash. This attack was sun-breathing. Scorching Rush. It is usually an attack used on a single target. However, in Issei's hand, it was able to target multiple targets at once. Having killed all the monsters on the floor he was in, Issei decided to descend to the 14th floor. With the sun breathing, Issei could steamroll the dungeon until the 20th floor. Unfortunately, he told the girls that he would be back by nightfall. Therefore, he had to return to the surface. Issei was too lazy to walk all the up to the surface. So, he used Eldritch Portal to get back to the surface. The location of the other end of the portal was the entrance to the dungeon. Hence, people freaked out when the portal was made. Even though Issei made a commotion, he didn't care. He left the place as if he did nothing to shock the people. Issei went to the inn that he, Seraphol and Rainer were staying at, but the girls were not there. So, Issei ended up walking around Arario in search of the duo. That's when he felt his ring heat up. This was an indicator that he was being summoned by one of his wives. Issei touched the ring and accepted the summon. Immediately, Issei disappeared from his location and reappeared in an office room. On his left, Issei saw Rainer and Seraphol sitting on a couch eating snacks inside the room. There was a table with a woman sitting on a chair at a desk in front of him. She had short red hair. Even with the eye patch, no one can deny that she looks beautiful. On his right, Issei saw another couch. It had another woman with an eye patch. When Seraphol saw Issei, she immediately dropped the snack in her hand and spoke. "Issei. You're here." Seraphol said. She jumped from her seat and onto Issei. She hugged him. "Show these two women that you're the best blacksmith. They didn't want to believe that you were capable of creating magic swords that wouldn't break in a single usage." Magic sword? Single usage? What the hell kind of a magic sword breaks in a single usage? Can such a thing even be considered a sword? From the sound of it, it's more like a consumable, Issei said. The woman on the couch on Issei's right had her eyes twitch. Those who can only make a sword that can be considered a consumable is a failure as a blacksmith. Hephaestus was looking at Issei. She was observing him. If she considered Seraphol and Rainer strong, then the person she was looking at was a monster among monsters. There were no other words to describe Issei. Hephaestus can feel the power coming from him even though he sealed most of it with a loop of binding. Where did this kind of person come from? I've never heard of a person as powerful as he is, Hephaestus thought. She knew that Issei wasn't a god as he didn't have any divinity. Every god-goddess has a divinity that identifies them as a god amongst mortals. He's a monster, but why do I feel my heart beating faster when I look at him? I've never felt this way before. Stop beating so much. I want to see if he can really make powerful weapons, as Rainer and Seraphol said. Hephaestus took a deep breath before she spoke. "Oh, so, you're the man they said could make weapon and armor more powerful than the blacksmith that I have nurtured," Hephaestus said. Issei looked at her and raised his eyebrows. "Your wives told me that you have armor that emits an aura of superiority, and they also told me that you can make weapons that can wield the elements without breaking. I'm curious, is anything they said true? Or are they lying?" Hephaestus already knew that Seraphol and Rainer weren't lying, but it could also be because they believed it to be true, even if it wasn't. Hence, she wanted to see it in person. "Armor that emits an aura of superiority? Are you talking about my robe of the sage? I was not the one that created that robe. However, when it comes to the weapons that can wield the elements without breaking, that's true," Issei said. He then took out more than a dozen swords, spears, halberds, etc. from his inventory for all to see. "These are but a few of the weapons I've forged over the years." Hephaestus and the other woman in the room dashed forward towards all the weapons taken out. They inspected it with their skill, and they were shocked. All of them were magic swords. However, it can't be considered in the same category. The magic sword made by a blacksmith from Arario could only be considered trash compared to Issei's weapons. This is astonishing. I've never seen a collection of magic swords with this much power. And to think they aren't a one-time use weapon, the other woman said. She was looking at the weapons in front of her. Then she remembered that they had guests. Ahem, sorry for showing you such a sight. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Tsubaki Kalbrand. Can I ask, did you really forge all this weapon? I did. I started blacksmithing when I was 11 years old, Issei said. Back then, most of the weapons he created looked great but lacked power and durability. Issei took out more weapons from his inventory. He then rearranged the swords according to the time of creation. I reorganized the weapons here according to the time of creation. This sword is beautiful but lacking in everything else. A few swords beside it look quite crude but emit power like no other. Over the years, I've perfected my smithing by balancing power, durability and design to try and reach the level of a god-goddess. While Hephaestus was looking through all the weapons that Issei had forged, something inside of her was excited. Hence, she blurted out her heart's desire. Have a duel with me, Hephaestus shouted. She didn't know why she was saying this. However, she wasn't stopping it either. You and me, a full-on smithing duel, no holds barred. Your greatest against my greatest. Heh. Interesting, you're a goddess, are you not? You want a duel with me and your speciality? No problem. Issei said. Hearing Hephaestus challenge him in blacksmithing got him excited. He wouldn't have another chance like this to challenge a goddess in blacksmithing. You're interesting. Let's do this. When do you want to hold the match between us? In a few days, Hephaestus said. She needed to speak to Uranos about using her godly power in the match. Hephaestus felt that if she didn't use her godly power, she would lose the match against Issei. Using my godly powers without permission would breach my promise. Hence, I would be forced back to heaven. I have no problem waiting, Issei said. On his left, he heard Rainer and Seraphol laughing at him. What are you girls laughing at? Hee. Nothing. Rainer and Seraphol said. Issei already knew what the duo was thinking. He wasn't that dense to not realize the way Hephaestus was acting. Looking at Hephaestus, he realized that something was wrong with the right side of her face. It had a curse on it. Since Issei felt a connection with Hephaestus, he decided to give her a little gift before leaving. He used Detect Origin Connection, Sever Origin Connection, and Divine Healing. The 3 magic was able to detect the origin of the curse, sever the connection of the curse from its caster origin, and heal the damage done by the curse. I'll be seeing you in a few days, Issei said. He gestured towards the girls that they were leaving. Issei then handed a piece of paper to Hephaestus with the address of the place they were staying at. And lastly, Issei spoke a few words to Hephaestus. By the way, I hope you like my gift. As Issei said those words, he gestured to his right eye. Hephaestus felt as her right eye started to feel hot and uncomfortable. She removed her eye patch the next moment and Tsubaki gasped in response. Huh? Tsubaki, what's wrong? Hephaestus said. It wasn't the first time she had seen her deformity. So, her action was weird to Hephaestus. Seeing that Tsubaki wasn't responding, Hephaestus started to snap her finger in Tsubaki's face. Hello? What's wrong with you? What's with the shocked face? Hephaestus-sama. Your face. Tsubaki said. She ran to the next room to get something. It was a mirror. Tsubaki then made Hephaestus look at the mirror. This made the goddess gasp in shock. What happened? Your eye, it's normal. How did her eye return to normal? Hephaestus didn't know. For a moment, she was thinking of something. Then, she remembered how Issei asked if she liked his gift and gestured at his right eye. Hephaestus laughed like a maniac. Ha ha ha. He's amusing. How did he do it? Not even the gods or goddess can remove the curse of my right eye, let alone heal it, Hephaestus said. She was touching her eyes as she looked in the mirror. Tsubaki, who heard Hephaestus, realized that Issei was why her goddess's eye was back to normal. Tsubaki, tell me what you think of that man. Issei? He didn't seem like a special person, Tsubaki said. She saw Issei as a handsome man, but that was all. She wasn't even sure if all the weapon he took out was truly forged by him. Other than seeing him as a handsome guy, I don't have anything to say about him. I couldn't tell if he was strong or not. I couldn't even say if he was the one that forged the weapons. Everything he said was true. None of them was a lie, Hephaestus said. Seeing weapons made by Issei made her blood boil. Hephaestus saw a few first-class weapons within the pile of weapons Issei showed, but that's nothing for her. The ones she was interested in were the weapons beyond first class. I already knew that Seraphol and Rainer were not lying, but to see all those weapons in person was truly eye-opening. Never would I imagine mortals are capable of forging such weapons. And again, they didn't feel like a mortal to me. The energy in their body is different from others. I felt the power from Seraphol and Rainer and thought they were strong, but when I saw Issei, he was beyond anything I've seen before. I couldn't use any words other than monster to describe him. Really? How strong is he? Tsubaki asked. She felt no power from Issei, but she didn't doubt her goddess. How come I didn't feel anything from him? He did arrive here by teleporting, but I thought that was Seraphal's power. I don't know how strong he is. All I know is that his power felt boundless, Hephaestus said. She felt as if there was no end to Issei's strength. However, I don't have any interest in his boundless power. All I want is to have a smithing duel with him. Thinking about the duel is making my heart beat faster. Tsubaki looked at Hephaestus. Does her goddess not know she looks like a girl in love right now? She wanted to say those words to Hephaestus, but she couldn't. Looking at her goddess, she was admiring the eye that had been healed. Tsubaki shook her head and made her exit. Chapter 67. The following afternoon, Issei was going around Arario with Rainer and Seraphil. He decided not to enter the dungeon today. Instead, he wanted to spend time with his wives going around and exploring the city. Exploring the city, Issei, Rainer and Seraphil saw many sights, such as a square decorated with colorful tiles and a garden. It also features a statue of a goddess. Spoonaqua, a pure white ship over 50 meters long that had been remodeled as a chic restaurant. And many more other unique sights. Due to Issei and the girls being on modern Earth, many people were looking at them as they took pictures of the places they went to. No one knew what they were doing. Hence, it attracted people's attention. However, those curious enough to approach Issei and the girls were ignored. At the end of the day, Issei and the girls were famished from walking all day. So, they decided to go to the pub close to their inn. The pub was called Hostess of Fertility. As the trio walked into the pub, they were welcomed by the waitresses working there. They asked for a table for 3 people and they were guided to an available table. Issei looked at the people sitting next to their table and he recognized them. They were the adventurers from the other day. The one that he had to save due to one of them gaining the aggro of the irregular monsters. Issei was thinking of ignoring them, but they were the ones that initiated a conversation with him and the girls. Hey. You're the person that saved us the other, right? Tiona shouted. She could never forget the person that suddenly saved her like a hero and killed the monster in one slash. I couldn't thank you for that day since you suddenly disappeared. Thank you for helping us. It's no problem at all. The monster on that floor wasn't that strong, to begin with, Issei said. He smiled at the girl and she smiled back with a blush on her face. It was my fault for the increase of monsters in the place. How they got the aggro of the monsters, I don't know. According to the system, it should have ignored them. Well, let me introduce myself and my familia, Tiona said. She then, one by one, pointed at her familia members and introduced them. The one with a scowl on his face every second of the day is Beth, Tiona said. She pointed at the white-haired werewolf. The short blonde man over there is Finn, the captain of our familia, Tiona said. She pointed at the blonde Palom. Now, this beautiful blonde princess is Ace, Tiona pointed at the expressionless blonde. The burly dwarf is Gareth, Tiona pointed at the short, stout man. The green-haired beauty over there is our vice captain, Riveria, Tiona said. She pointed at the high elf. Issei can feel that she is of noble birth with a single glance. The one over there that shares the same face as me is my older sister, Tyan. She is in love with our captain, but all he does is ignore her, Tiona said in a teasing tone. Lastly, the one with the red hair is our goddess, Loki-sama. Don't let her near the girls beside you. She would no doubt grab their boobs in jealousy, Tiona said. This made Issei chuckle. Well, my name is Hyoudou, Issei. These lovely ladies beside me are Seraphil, Leviathan and Rainer, Issei said. We aren't part of a familia, but we are family. They are my wives, after all. Issei saw people spitting out their drinking all over the pub and getting scolded by the waitresses as they got wet. Ah ha ha. Kid, that's a nice joke. One of the adventurers nearby commented. No, he isn't joking. He is our husband, Seraphil said at the same time. The 2 girls even showed their rings. Jealousy was running rampant in the pub. It's hard enough for them to find a beautiful girlfriend. Yet, here is a guy with 2 wives. Why was the world so unfair? Hold on, did you say that you're not part of a familia? Tiona asked. Did she hear wrong? How can you be so strong without having the blessing of a god or goddess? I heard that people can get strong outside without the dungeon, but they don't come close to rivaling an adventurer. That's because I'm not someone you compare to normal people. Even then, there are ways to get stronger without the fauna of a god-goddess or the excelia gained from the dungeon, Issei said. Case in point, it is said that people can't have more than 3 magic as 3 is the limit. However, it is said that there is an adventurer nicknamed 9 Hells that has more than 3 magic. There is always an exception to the rules as long as you can find it. In fairness, 9 magic isn't all that impressive to me. The 9 hell that Issei was talking about was Reverial Joe's elf, who happens to be sitting at the table next to him. Reveria's eyes twitched at the words of Issei. This was the first time someone's words had affected her this much. Not impressive. Who was this man kidding? There is no one more talented than her in magic. Ah ha ha. Reveria. Did you hear that? He said your 9 magic wasn't that impressive. Bet laughed his ass off. He didn't know who Issei was personally, but he found him funny as he saw the man's words affect the calm high elf. Aren't you going to say something in return? I can tell you want to. Bet, shut up, Reveria said. Her tone and facial expression scared Bet, who shut up upon her command. Reveria then looked at Issei. Not impressive. Who are you to say that my feats are not impressive? No one in Arario is more knowledgeable than me in magic, anyone who is not a god-goddess. I said it wasn't impressive because 9 magic isn't a lot, Issei said. He then showcased multiple different magic spells that can destroy all of Arario. To others, the spell looked weak and ineffective in fighting. However, people like Mia Grand, Sir Flova Freya, Loki, Ryu, and other high-level adventurers felt the power contained in each spell. What do you think? Do I qualify to say the words that 9 magic isn't that impressive? How is this? Reveria was speechless. The man before her is capable of chantless spells powerful enough to obliterate Arario several times over. Moreover, he had more than 9 spells of the same power. Are you really not part of a familia? If so, how did you reach such a level of magic? Even the High Elf royal family is incapable of creating such magic without the usage of Falna. Oh, you seem quite interested. Do you want me to tell you? Issei said. He used a teasing tone, but Reveria, the ever-observant person of the Loki familia, missed his tone. Too bad. I'm not willing to say. Ah ha ha. He got you there, Reveria. Bet laughed once more. He forgot the earlier threat of Reveria. How did you not realize that he was only teasing you? It was so obvious. Reveria smacked Bet in the head. She then stared at Issei for teasing her. But there was nothing Reveria could do. The man before her is not someone she could fight. Reveria doubts that she could even fight him on equal ground with the help of her familia. That's how powerful she believes the spell of Issei was. While Reveria was staring at Issei, another member of the Loki familia was staring at Issei. It was Ace Wallenstein. Why? Because she saw how powerful he was when he easily killed the irregular monsters in the dungeon the other day. The monster was intelligent and capable of planning, and that's why their party got surrounded. But Issei, being surrounded meant nothing before his strength. Hide me, Ace said. She looked at Issei with a serious expressionless face. The way you fought that day was different from anyone I've ever met. You were able to appear and disappear in an instant. I don't know whether that was magic or not, but I thought you looked like a war god descended from heaven. The FFT. Me? A god. No way. Issei said. He had a chance to become a spiritual god of time, space, life and death. Yet, he decided not to. Being a god is not him. Even if I have the chance to become a god, I refuse. After talking for a while, someone finally decided to come to the table and take Issei and the girl's order. Issei ordered a massive pile of food. He was warned that he wouldn't be welcomed next time if he wasted the food that he ordered. That was fine with Issei. The amount of food he ordered wasn't that much for them. Chapter 68. Outside the hostess of fertility, Issei and Ace had a face-off. With Ace not having her own weapon at the moment, Issei lent her one of his rapiers. He asked what type of weapon she preferred to wield, and she replied with a rapier. Hence Issei showed her all his rapier and allowed her to choose her weapon. The entirety of the people in the hostess of fertility and around the pub was watching the showdown. They didn't know who Issei was, but they certainly knew Ace, the sword princess. Many people were banking on Issei making a fool of himself as they'd never heard of him. The exception to this rule was the people in the pub when Issei showcased his magic. However, the fight was about swordsmanship, not magic. Hence, people who knew Issei was strong still believed he would lose. Loki, the goddess of the Loki familia, spoke to Rainer and Seraphol. She was wondering about the chances of her child's winning ratio. Can you tell me one thing? Loki asked. She looked at both Rainer and Seraphol with a serious expression. What are the chances of my familia's ace winning against your husband? 0. Both Seraphol and Rainer said at the same time. Loki looked at Rainer and Seraphol to determine if they were confident in their husband or if that were the actual chances of ace. If you think that we're only saying that because Issei is our husband, you're wrong, Seraphol said. She was one of the people that knew of Issei's full power. Seraphol is one of the best people to determine Issei's opposition's winning chances. Among the people that our husband knows, I'm among the 3 who know his full power. And let me tell you this, I am strong, so much so that people fear angering me. However, even with my overwhelming strength, I am merely an ant in the face of Issei's full power. I still remember the day he released his full strength. I couldn't even breathe. It took all my willpower to keep my consciousness. Rainer and Loki looked at Seraphol. They saw her face go pale after recalling the day Issei released his full power. Curious. That's what the duo was feeling. Rainer has been with Issei for a while now. She knew that Issei was strong, but she's never seen him get serious in a fight. I know you're serious about your words, Loki said. She could tell that Seraphol wasn't lying, just like every god-goddess. But she didn't even know how strong Seraphol was. I have no reference point for your strength. So, I can't tell how strong you're saying Issei is. Put it this way. If I was to release one of my favorite magic, Seraphil said. She then looked at Loki with a smirk. I can freeze all of her areas several times over. I would still have enough magical power to continue decimating the whole world. What Seraphil said is true. Before she even got the true magic conversion from the wedding ring. Now that she has the wedding ring, her magic is inexhaustible. Seraphil would be able to continue casting her magic without limit. Well, as long as she doesn't get mentally exhausted doing so. However, thanks to Raising Heart, that wouldn't be an issue. The Loki familia was listening to the conversation of Loki and Issei's wives. They were shocked at the words they said. With Loki not refuting their words, it could only mean one thing. The words of Seraphil weren't lies. One person capable of destroying all of her area was shocking enough, but to hear that another individual can do the same? That's genuinely shocking to another level. They then looked at Rainer with fear. Could it be? This person also has the power to destroy her area several times over. Rainer saw the people of Loki familia looking at her. So, she smiled. It was a warm, loving smile. However, to the people of Loki familia, the smile was akin to a smirk. Why? Because their fear was changing their perception. To them, it was best not to mess with the sleeping devil. Outside the hostess of fertility, the fight was about to begin. Ace has gotten used to her borrowed sword. Funny enough, Ace liked the sword the moment she felt a connection to it through her wind. She tried her aerial on it and not a single issue came up. It was like it was built for her. The sword's name was Tempest, for its ability was akin to a tempest. Ace made her stance, and Issei was standing straight casually. The moment Ace charged at Issei, all he did was move his head and body slightly for every thrust of the sword. Ace doesn't seem to be experienced in fighting people. Her movement was erratic and savage, not at all refined. Against monsters, the fighting ability of Ace would be okay and be considered strong. However, to enemies that can think logically and have trained for years, her ability to wield her sword is nothing. Seeing that her attack was not working, Ace decided to step it up. She used her aerial spell to speed up her movement. From the start of the spar, Ace has forgotten that the match was about swordsmanship and magic was not to be used. However, that meant nothing to Issei. He didn't complain that she used magic. Even with the increase in speed, Ace was far slower than Issei. A slight movement of his head and body was enough to dodge the attacks made by Ace. Not once during this entire exchange has Issei taken a step. Ace was trying her best, but it wasn't working. After a few moments of attacking Issei, she finally realized that she had used her magic, something that was not allowed in the match, but she saw Issei gesture to her to continue. So, she decided to continue. From Issei's gesture, she realized that Issei allowed her to use her magic as much as she wanted. This was true. So, she used Lil Rafaga. This was Ace's strongest magic variant of her aerial. Her weapon was coated in a powerful wind enhanced by Tempest. Ace knew that her Lil Rafaga was much stronger than it usually was. She knew this was done by the sword in her hand. Without hesitation, she thrust her sword toward Issei. Lil Rafaga. Ace shouted. She thrust her sword with all her might. Issei saw the attack. So, he brought out a single finger to block it and nothing more. Shock. That's the reaction of everyone. They saw the power that Ace, the sword princess, showcased, but it was blocked by a single finger. How is that possible? All the Loki familia stared at Issei in awe. Then, they looked at Seraphil and Rainer. No wonder they said that Ace's chances were zero. Ace was exhausted. She was close to mind down after using her aerial to boost her speed and using Lil Rafaga to the max. It was then that she heard Issei speak. The title that people gave you? Sword Princess, is it? I can tell that you aren't worthy of that title, Issei said. He wasn't being arrogant. Issei was stating facts. The title Sword Princess can only be given to someone who has exceptional sword mastery. Ace doesn't have that. Sure, she was strong and could wield the sword. But her usage of it was crude and savage. Not worthy of the title Sword Princess. The way you use the sword, it's nowhere near refined enough for you to receive such title. When you had the sword in hand, could you feel how uncomfortable the sword was? The way you used the sword made it hum in discomfort. It didn't like the way you were wielding it. Yet, it gave its best to amplify your abilities due to taking a liking to you. Ace looked at the sword in her hand. It was true the hum of the sword whenever she thrust and swung it. It felt as if the sword didn't like her fighting style. Ace picked Tempest due to her aerial ability and connection to the wind. She never considered her fighting style, whether it was fit for the sword or not. Teach me? Ace said. She gave Issei a serious and determined look. From the fight earlier and the fight in the dungeon when she first met Issei, she could tell that she was nowhere near his sword master. You can tell the problem with my fighting style. You could also teach me to refine and perfect the technique. I can, but why should I? Issei asked. He looked at Ace nonchalantly. Issei didn't have a reason to help her. I don't know you, and this is only the second time we've met. And that's considering the time I only saw a glance of you in the dungeon when you were in danger. True, Issei didn't have a reason to help Ace. But she was not willing to give up that easily. But for now, she had to retreat in case she ended up pestering Issei. In truth, Issei didn't mind teaching her how to wield a sword properly since he would have a month to stay in Danmachi. It would be a way to waste time. He was just teasing her. Issei wants to see whether she was someone that would easily give up upon rejection or if her determination is strong enough to bear multiple rejections and still continue to ask. Issei wasn't doing this to embarrass Ace. After training Kiba in the usage of the sword, he realized that his training was very harsh and no matter what he did to modify the training to be lighter, it would always turn out to be harsher than he imagined. Hence, he decided to give up modifying his training and instead train those that could withstand the intense training. Chapter 69. Once more, Issei was back in the dungeon doing his dungeon diving. However, he wasn't alone. The sword princess, Ace Wallenstein, has been following the entire time. Issei didn't mind her tagging along. He found Ace's presence quite calming. Although, the girl wouldn't stop staring at him at every turn. Nonetheless, Issei continued his descent into the dungeon. While Issei was not having any problem, Ace, on the other hand, was quite shocked. The monsters in the dungeon seemed to be actively hunting Issei. From the situation alone, Ace was able to deduce that the reason for the irregular monsters was Issei. How it was possible? Ace didn't have a clue and she wasn't going to ask. After all, the number of monsters was helping her get stronger. The amount of Excelia and the quality of the Excelia Ace was receiving were more than usual. Ace looked at Issei with a look of curiosity. The longer she stayed with Issei, the more she wants to know about him. Outside the dungeon, Hephaestus got the approval of Uranos to allow her to wield her arcanum. However, she would only be permitted to do so in a limited space. Therefore, before Hephaestus could use her arcanum, she needs to get a venue that she could use for her duel with Issei, but that was not a concern. She could always use one of her biggest forges. The entire day, she was running around with her most trusted person all over Arario. Hephaestus-sama. Why are you dragging me everywhere? Asked Tsubaki. They've been too almost all over Arario. That was an exaggeration. You don't understand, Tsubaki. I can feel it. That man, Issei. He is special. I don't know why, but I can feel that if I don't give it my all, I would lose. Said Hephaestus. For the longest time, there was never a single person that made her feel challenged. Do you believe that? I mean, I saw weapons he said that he created, but they were weapons you can create with ease, said Tsubaki. She didn't think as highly of Issei as Hephaestus does. She can tell Issei was amazing, but not in the same way that Hephaestus does. Ah ha ha. That's where you're wrong, Tsubaki. The weapons may look amazing with their design and aura, but that was not the impressive part. The weapons themselves are insanely powerful. A single glance is all I needed to know that those weapons are far superior to the weapons made by Krazo Blood. You have no idea how much power those weapons are hiding, said Hephaestus. To her, a weapon's capability will be revealed immediately. Inside the dungeon, floor 25. Issei too was struggling. He didn't know what to do. He has tried everything, but he couldn't descend a single floor. Boy. Partner. What do you mean you tried everything? I'm pretty sure that you haven't tried not being a pervert yet, said Dreg. He was annoyed at his host. After meeting Issei, he felt that he got the short end of the stick. Even if the other Issei was a monster, he would have preferred that over the man he is with now. Never. Shouted Issei too. He was breathing heavily as he has recently been running away from one of the monsters in the dungeon. You're hopeless. If I was the other Issei, I would have left you long ago, said Dreg. He sighed at his partner's pathetic sight. The harpy then found Issei's hiding spot. When Issei too saw the harpy, the first thing that went to his head is its boobs. Hee hee. Oppai. Shouted Issei too. As Issei too ogled the harpy, he was attacked. Boy. You idiot. Get out of there, now. Shouted Dreg. If it wasn't for him, Issei too would have his head impaled by the harpy's talons. Issei too ran for his life. In the training area, Issei and Ace were facing each other. Issei finally conceded to Ace and decided to train her in swordsmanship, but he won't be training her in the sun breathing. Cling. Clang. Bang. Cling. Loud sounds of swords clashing can be heard throughout Twilight Manor. That's right, Issei and Ace were in the Twilight Manor. Reveria, Tiona and Bet watched the fight before them. Last time, Issei didn't bother to use his sword skills against Ace. Therefore, the Loki Familia didn't know if Issei was any good with a sword. Sure, he was strong, but is he qualified to teach Ace to wield a sword? That was a question that has been going in the head of Loki and the others. Weird really. Tiona reminded them that Issei saved their asses in the dungeon with his amazing sword skills. Loki ignored Tiona's claims and wanted to see it for herself. When she did, she stormed off since she knew Ace wouldn't stop training with Issei. She was jealous that he was taking the time of her favorite child. Reveria, do you think Loki-sama is going to do something stupid against Issei? asked Tiona. She was worried that Loki would retaliate for Issei taking a lot of Ace's time. Even if Ace is the one taking Issei's time. Possibly, but I don't think so since she knows how crazy powerful Issei is with magic, said Reveria. She observed Issei and felt a sense of frustration. In her mind, the words of Issei were still lingering. Tiona saw the way Reveria's face crunch up. Are you okay, Reveria-san? Asked Tiona. She wasn't very good at reading the mood. I'm fine. Just a bit peeved at that man's words. I've been thinking about it since last night, but I couldn't find an answer as to how he can use more magic than possible. I mean, I don't even know how I can use 9 magic, said Reveria. She wants to find out. Her curiosity wouldn't allow her to let go of such a fascinating discovery. Tiona, Reveria and Bet continued to watch the fight between Issei and Ace. Bang. Ace was tossed a few meters away after being hit by Issei's sword swing. Again. Don't merely attack me. Observe, analyze, predict. You need to be able to anticipate the changes in your opponent's movement. You're not the only one that can change your pattern as you fight, said Issei. If he is going to train Ace, then he was not going to do so half-heartedly. Ace stood up and continued to attack Issei. She was getting better, but the process is slow. Ace is used to fighting only monsters from the dungeon, but not humans or beings that can think. Plus, there is the ability of hers, Avenger. It allows her to get stronger when fighting monsters. It isn't useful against people. Too slow. And you're putting too much strength on each strike. You need to hold back in case you miss your attack, said Issei. Following through with one's attack is great, but to use all your strength to it. That's not good. What would happen if your attack missed? You wouldn't be able to stop your attack and you'd be vulnerable. The training between Issei and Ace lasted longer than they thought it would. Nonetheless, Loki No Boobs was still being suspicious as she was not back from wherever she went. Hephaestus. I'm telling you. That man is trying to steal Ace away from me, said a drunk Loki. She took another sip of her mug. Earlier. You should have seen the way he looked at her. I can tell. He is after my Ace, said Loki. She was frustrated. I don't think that's what's happening. I think it's all in your head, said Hephaestus. Her eyes twitched at Loki's words. She felt jealous. By the way. Why do you seem like you're busy with something? Asked Loki. She still hasn't stopped drinking. Because I am busy, said Hephaestus. She was training her blacksmithing skills to go against Issei. I'm going to beat him. My pride as the goddess of blacksmithing is on the line. Although, if I think about it, I don't seem to care about my pride as the goddess of blacksmith if anything, I just want to see how amazing I am, said Hephaestus. She could care less about her so-called pride as a goddess. She just wanted to act cool in front of Issei. Who are you talking about? And why are you blushing like a teenage girl? Asked Loki. She can see the difference between a blush and the redness caused by the heat. I don't know what you're talking about. However, the person I'm talking about is Hyoudou Issei. He showed me some of his work and they rival mine in heaven. I've asked Uranus for permission to use my Arcanum and I'm going to have a blacksmithing duel against him, said Hephaestus. She hammered the metal in front of her. Loki's eyes twitched. Again. It was Hyoudou Issei. Chapter 70. After meeting Hephaestus and getting drunk off her ass, Loki decided to head back to the Twilight Manor. There, Loki saw Issei and Ace training. At this very moment, Issei was touching Ace as he shows her the proper stance she needs to develop, but to Loki, it seemed like he was doing something inappropriate. Even when drunk, Loki shook it off and realized it was only her drunkenness that was showing her something unsavory. However, just to make sure that nothing inappropriate was happening, Loki decided to spy on the two for a bit longer. Right, as if she was going to be able to spy on Issei. He already felt her presence the moment she walked in. Although you may think that him knowing of her presence would make him a bit mischievous, however, Issei didn't want to bother the already paranoid goddess. It would just be a headache in the making. Instead, Issei opted on training Ace properly. Seeing nothing going on between Ace and Issei, Loki decided to leave them. Maybe Hephaestus is right, said Loki. She remembered the goddess of blacksmithing telling her that it was all in her head. I'm just being paranoid for no reason, said Loki. However, Ace was staring at Issei intently. It is the first time that she felt her face heat up. The way Issei touched her hip made her tingle throughout her body. It felt nice. She didn't know why she was feeling this way. Inside the dungeon, Issei too was breathing heavily as he had to swim a long way to get away from the monster that was chasing him. Partner. This is just getting ridiculous, said Drake. He shook his head inside the sacred gear. This was sadder than he had hoped for. Yeah, I know it is getting ridiculous. It is why I'm trying to complete that lunatic's mission for me, said Issei too. He didn't realize that Drake was talking about him. I mean you idiot. Why can't you learn to control yourself? It isn't that hard, said Drake. He was getting frustrated with his partner. It was only for a moment, but Drake was thinking if he could make a deal with the other Issei on being separated from his current host. Come on, Drake. Why can't you just give me access to the booted gear? I don't believe that the other version of myself would be able to find out, said Issei. It was then it happened. The silhouette of Issei appeared. Oh, I very much will know if he does give you access without following my strict requirements, said Issei. Or at least his silhouette did. Just because I am not here by your side doesn't mean I don't have the means to know what is happening. Magic is a wondrous thing, is it not? So why did you think I wouldn't have a way of monitoring you? Continued Issei. Issei too was now sweating bullets. He was sure there was going to be a punishment for trying to force Drake to unlock the power of the boosted gear without meeting the requirements. From this moment on, the gravity around you would increase by tenfold. And also, you should be able to feel the other punishment next time, said Issei. The second punishment is worse than the first. Issei too then dropped to the ground as the gravity around him changed. The silhouette of Issei then looked at Drake. For not giving in to his request, I will give you a gift, said Issei. Then a light enveloped Issei's left hand. The light continued to glow until it was too bright to look at. A few moments later, a miniature Drake can be seen floating. Ah ha ha. This is amazing. I may not have my original body, but this will do, said Drake. He was free. He was truly glad that he did not listen to his partner. For now you can only freely manifest yourself for an hour, but do well in monitoring your partner, and I would increase its limit. If you can turn him into a gentleman that I can approve of, then I will make it so that you can manifest freely indefinitely, said Issei. It is just right to reward those that listen. Issei's silhouette then disappears. Sucks to be you right now, said Drake. He can see his partner struggling to stand up. Truly, he was glad that he did not give in to his partner's pleas. The gift he got was great. Knowing that he could increase his free manifestation limit, there was no way that he would give in to his partner's request ever. Truly, Issei too is an unlucky man to have met his counterpart, Gacha Issei. Issei was in bed with Seraphil and Rainer hugging him. He smiled as he is now certain that Drake wouldn't give in to his partner's request. Is he being sadistic towards his counterpart? Yup. He was not going to accept knowing that there was that kind of a sick person sharing his name and face. Issei. What are you laughing at? Asked Seraphil. She saw Issei smiling as he looked at the ceiling. Oh nothing, said Issei. He chuckled a bit. Ah. So you did something to make the experience of Issei too worse, got it, said Rainer. She can tell that Issei was enjoying the torture training of his counterpart. You know, it would be easier to use the magic you used on Drake. That way, he would straighten out, said Seraphil. She knows about the happened to Issei's heavenly dragon. I could, but I'm not planning to give him trauma. If you remember, it took Drake a while before he was able to deal with the trauma I caused, said Issei. It would sure be faster, but the lingering effect would be quite big. He may enjoy the physical suffering of Issei too, but not the mental ones. That is a different story. The physical could always be healed with magic, but the mind, not so much. Oh. I have a very important question, said Rainer. She smirked at Issei because she knew that Issei isn't trying to do this actively. Are you planning to make Ace one of our sisters? Asked Rainer. She was smirking. Issei nearly choked on air after hearing what Rainer asked. I had no plans for that, but I can tell that she is developing something more than wanting to learn from me, said Issei. He was not stupid or dense. Oh. Then it is possible that she would be one of us. This is great, said Rainer. She was already making a plan on gathering the others and strategizing on a way to attack Issei in bed and win against him. Rainer is more of a succubus than a fallen angel if Issei was being honest. And again, even so, she is Issei's succubus of a fallen angel wife. But Hephaestus, she was done with her preparation. A venue. Check. Equipment. Check. Materials. Check. Check. Unlocking of Arcanum. Check. Now all that's left to do is inform Issei when the match between them is happening and where it is happening. Tsubaki. Tomorrow we meet Issei and his wives. We are going to inform him that everything has been settled and the match between us is a go, said Hephaestus. She seemed more excited about meeting Issei than the match itself. Tsubaki was thinking about how her goddess could not see that she was infatuated with Issei. It baffled her. She never thought that Hephaestus had this side of her. Understood, Hephaestus-sama. I'll write the letter and send it to Issei's current dwelling, said Tsubaki. She was about to leave and write the letter, but Hephaestus stopped her. There is no need for that. We are meeting him tomorrow. What would be the point of sending a formal letter when we can tell him about it in person? Besides, I don't see Issei as the formal type of guy. He is more of the spontaneous type, said Hephaestus. She was looking forward to meeting the man that was able to help her with the curse on her right eye. Tsubaki nodded her head in understanding. By the way, Hephaestus-sama. I heard you speaking to Loki-sama earlier. What was that about if I may ask? Asked Tsubaki. She was curious since Loki left very drunk. She was just being paranoid. She believes that Issei was trying to steal Ace away from her. I told her it was just her imagination as I don't see Issei as that type of person. It was quite hilarious listening to her complaining, said Hephaestus. It was ridiculous, everything that Loki said. Not a single one was believable. Tsubaki noted how Hephaestus was defending Issei and they weren't even dating. She thought just how infatuated her goddess was towards Issei. She was afraid that if Issei rejected her she would fall into despair. She hoped that no such thing would happen. Chapter 71. The following morning, Issei got up from his bed and took a shower. While he did, Seraphol and Rainer decided to join him. After the shower, Issei got ready for the day and headed to the dungeon. That's what the plan was, but when he opened the door, he was met with Hephaestus and Tsubaki. Hephaestus was in a good mood. Last night, she dreamt of something magical that caused her to be in a good mood, but she could not remember all the details of what it was. As for Tsubaki, she was not. She was thinking all night about a way to let her goddess know that there is a chance for Issei to reject her as he was already married. Although she knew Hephaestus was unaware of her feelings toward Issei, it was best to prepare for the worse. Hephaestus. Tsubaki. What are you guys doing here early in the morning? Asked Issei. He was curious. Well, I finally got my permission to use my arcanum. That means we can have our forging match. I have chosen the venue, have invited the guest and other obligations I needed to do is complete. All I have remaining is to inform you of it. Hence, here we are, said Hephaestus. She was smiling the entire time. This was unusual for her. Sure, she does smile, but not as much as she is now. Oh, this is exciting news, said Issei. He was smiling. He has never showcased his forging before in front of a crowd, but he was excited to do so. Quite. Here is all the info you need. The match will happen in 3 days, said Hephaestus. As she handed the paper to Issei, their hands touched. Hephaestus blushed and she didn't know why. As their purpose of finding Issei was done, Hephaestus skipped back to her abode, along with Tsubaki who could only sigh. Hephaestus was skipping. It was adorable. Issei thought so. Rainer and Seraphol peeked at what the paper in Issei's hand said. Whoa. She was serious when she wanted to have a forging match with you, said Rainer. She didn't think the goddess was going to go through with it. You know, the way she looked at you was quite, how do I say this? She seemed infatuated with you, said Seraphol. She can't believe that Issei was attracting a goddess without flirting. Then again, she was also drawn to Issei without the need for him to flirt. Because of magical girls. I noticed. I also noticed that the rings have increased, said Issei. He looked into his storage, and it was now 10. It was 8 before since he already gave out some to Seraphol, Rainer, Ninger, and Sheener. Plus, the one he was wearing. My. You truly are the harem king. Laughed Rainer. She heard Kaneko too that Issei too wanted to be a harem king. Wah. I'm not the harem king. Said Issei. He crossed his arms in mock anger. Anyways, I am heading to the dungeon. With any luck, I should be able to reach the 50th floor. It should not be too difficult for me, said Issei. He did not find the dungeon hard even with the irregular monsters coming after him. We know you are strong, but still try and be careful, said Rainer. She knows Issei is strong, but that doesn't mean she would stop worrying about him. Will do, said Issei. He then headed to the dungeon. Inside the dungeon, Issei watched as Ace killed monsters. Issei wanted to know where he can help train Ace. Truly, Ace doesn't need help when it comes to killing monsters. But she needs a lot of work. Just because she has no trouble with monsters doesn't mean that there are no flaws in her style, if you can even call it that. Hours later, Issei had enough of watching Ace kill monsters. That's enough, said Issei. He saw everything that he needed. Go home today. I'll a training regime for you. It should be ready tomorrow. That's when we also started. Be ready. Ace looked at Issei and nodded. She was not going to complain. The training she was receiving has given her a massive boost in her stats. It baffled her, training with Issei was increasing her stats faster than killing monsters on the lower floor. She nodded at Issei and headed back to the Twilight Manor. She had nothing more to do in the dungeon for the day. She wasn't even planning to enter, but Issei asked to see her fight a monster. Issei watched as Ace left the dungeon. Now that he was alone, Issei sped through the dungeon. It was a piece of cake. There were a few challenges here and there, but all in all, it was not difficult. Restrict the usage of his skills, and he would have even more skills to use. That is how insane Issei is. Floor 25. Issei too has finally started to get serious. Why? It was simple. The monster in the dungeon was able to make him hallucinate losing all that was dear to him. Rias. Asia. Akeno. Apai. Permanently. I don't know if I should be proud that you finally got serious or ashamed of why you got serious, said Drag. He saw that his partner was getting stronger, but it was all for the wrong reasons. I refuse to never see Apai again. Said Issei too. He was angry as he hacked away at the monster plant that spread a hallucinogenic. Apai forever. I am not getting that awesome gift of being able to manifest freely, am I? Thought Dreg. He needed to make Issei too into a gentleman, but that was not happening anytime soon. He also believes that Issei had given them enough head start. That man is sure to come soon. We had enough time to get to the lower floors, but here we are. Greg was getting frustrated with his partner. Maybe I can have a truce with Volley and Albion. That way I can ask if I can join the Cows Brigade, thought Drake. Nah. Screw Albion. Drake watched Issei too and saw that he was about to get attacked in the back. Watch your back, partner, said Drake. He saw Issei too look behind him and slay the monster. Nicely done. Maybe there is hope for you yet. However, I am doubtful of it. Drake did not want to get his hopes high. It was better to have lower expectations than to be disappointed in the end. No matter though, Drake. I'll try and find a way to make this partner of mine into a fine young man. I do have the collective knowledge of my previous wielder. Maybe there is a clue to helping Issei to be a gentleman. Issei forgot about Issei 2. He was now on the 45th floor, but he never encountered Issei 2 in the dungeon. Am I forgetting something? Asked Issei. He did so to himself. I know I was supposed to do something, but I can't remember. If I can't remember it, it might not have been important. Issei shrugged his shoulders. Back on the 25th floor, Issei too felt relieved for some reason. He didn't know why, he was in danger now, but a sense of relief was there. Greg, did you feel a sense of relief as well? Asked Issei 2. It was such a strong sense of relief, as if they got out of the powerful beast's radar. I didn't, said Dreg. Probably because it had something to do with you and not me. Could be. It doesn't matter, said Issei 2. He was glad that whatever it was no longer a problem. I feel like I can do whatever I want. Do you think that is a good idea? Remember, you are on a timer, said Dreg. He was afraid of Issei. That was a given. It was not stopping anytime soon. You're right. Said Issei 2. Maybe with this newfound relief, I can perform better than before. Dreg shook his head. His partner seems to be going crazy. After a day's work, Issei decided to head back to the place he was staying at. Issei looked for Seraphil and Rainer, but they were not around. He didn't know what they were doing, but he knew they would be safe. No one in Danmachi had the power to cause them issues. Even the gods or goddesses were not a match for them. Issei meditated and went inside his subspace. Training the sun breathing to perfection was not difficult. Issei was done in a few hours. What Issei wanted to do now was train his blacksmithing skills. He had a goddess to win over, a goddess to win against. Yes, Issei wanted to defeat a goddess in the art of blacksmithing. He was not going to hold back his skills, as Hephaestus was worth the respective beating with his all. The end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video.